Discover the divine roots, 4,000 years of sacred struggle in Israel and Palestine's covenant story. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the word of the Lord came to Abram, son of Terach, in the ancient land of Ur of the Chaldeans. With a divine resonance ringing in his heart, Abram felt an unmistakable call to leave behind the familiar comforts of his home. God promised that he would be the father of a great nation, and this expansive promise echoed through time like a distant thunder, beckoning him from his past towards an uncharted future. With each step, Abram felt the weight of his family's expectations hovering above him like a dark cloud. Clad in simple garments that flapped against the dry wind, he gathered his household, his wife Sarai, and his nephew Lot under the vast, starry heavens. They began their journey to Canaan, their hearts a mix of eager hope and profound trepidation, each star a whisper of the promise that awaited them. As days slipped into weeks, they traversed the arid landscapes, yet the land they sought was not welcoming. A dire famine struck, like an unexpected tempest tearing at the seams of their determination. Desperation clawed at Abram's throat, as uncertainty clouded his mind. How will my family thrive if I obey? He pondered amidst the cruel conditions, feeling the specter of doubt weigh heavily on his shoulders. Yet, just when the shadows seemed the darkest, a familiar voice, God's voice, pierced the silence, stirring within him the memory of a covenant made. To your offspring, I will give this land, resonated in his spirit, establishing a lighthouse of hope against the raging storm of doubt. At Shechem, under a solitary oak, God vividly renewed his promise, revealing a tangible connection that bridged the divine to the earthly. With tears mingling with the dust, he erected an altar, praising the God who called him by name. Here, at the heart of hardship, faith ignited within him, illuminating the very path he feared to tread. The altar became a testament, etched in time, of unwavering commitment amidst swirling uncertainties, yet, where faith blossomed, conflict soon sprang forth. The once united household frayed as they navigated their everyday struggles against the backdrop of survival. Their trials, like swirling sands, echoed the tumult of uncertainty within Abram's heart. Each conflict revealed hidden doubts and wavering trust in God's unwavering promise, as if the ground beneath him quaked with the weight of his lineage. As time marched on, the narrative deepened with the birth of Isaac, a miracle cradled in the arms of a faithful promise amidst the earlier shadows of doubt. Isaac, too, would face tests of legacy, grappling with the divine calling that defined his family. In a world steeped in misunderstanding, he wrestled with identity, tangled in the scars of familial deception, not knowing that the covenant was meant to endure through the generations, binding him to the original promise. The tension crescendoed with Jacob, who, during a fateful night, wrestled with an angel at Peniel. In this primal embrace, he became Israel, a name born out of struggle and transcendence. As dawn broke, illuminating a fresh perspective over the wrestling match of faith, the echoes of the covenant lingered, anchoring the lineage of promise through the tumultuous journey. And so, in the cries of a nation yearning for deliverance, God's plan continued to unfold, preparing to rescue them through Moses, ushering in the Exodus, a testament to his enduring fidelity. But the question lingered in the air, like a sacred echo: how might God's promises come to fruition amid humanity's frailty? The story beckons, yearning for the resolution hidden in the divine tapestry, as Abraham's descendants forged their covenant journey. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the tale unfolds, the journey from despair to hope remains woven in the sacred struggle of a nation deeply intertwined with the divine narrative. And now the people of Israel were burdened under the weight of their afflictions in Egypt. The cries of the oppressed echoed across the land, reaching the ears of the Almighty. In the stirring silence of night, while darkness cloaked the earth, the word of the Lord found its way to Moses. He was tending to his father-in-law Jethro's flock near the great mountain of God, Horeb, when suddenly, a flame erupted from the midst of a bush, a holy fire that burned yet was not consumed. As Moses drew near, a voice resounded from the flames, "Moses, Moses." And he answered, "Here I am." "Do not come near, take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." The divine presence enveloped him, and in that moment, God revealed his heart. "I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them." Moses trembled, unsure of his worthiness, yet God continued, "I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Doubts assailed him like a mighty torrent. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" The Lord reassured him, "I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." But Moses pressed further, "If they ask me what is his name, what shall I say?" Then God declared with a voice that trembled the very soul, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you." Moses returned to his kinsfolk with urgency, sharing the vision of liberation that God had bestowed upon him. The elders of Israel gathered, their hearts beating in sync with new hope as they acknowledged the promise of deliverance. They bowed their heads to the ground, for they sensed that the long-foretold redemption was unfurling before them. As Moses stood before Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, with a heart hardened like iron, he raised his voice to declare the message of God, "Let my people go that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh, blinded by pride, responded with contempt. The people of Israel suffered further, their burdens increased, yet, even in the terrors of their oppression, the intricate fabric of God's plan began to weave through the tension. The Lord instructed Moses for the coming plagues, a series of divine signs that would bear witness to his power, designed to confront the false gods of Egypt and display his sovereign authority. Then came the day when the Lord differentiated the fate of Egypt from that of Israel. "I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgments. I am the Lord." The blood of the Lamb, smeared on the doorposts, would signal his mercy. The judgment would pass over those who believed in his promises. On that fateful night, fear would grip the land, but in the homes of Israel, faith would ignite, paving the way for a covenant birthed in blood and liberation. Yet within the shadows of looming dread, a promise pulsated, a promise beckoning those who dared to trust. Would the hearts of the people remain steadfast amid the storm? The tale surged, for the true Exodus was not only a flight from Egypt but a profound journey towards the heart of God's eternal covenant. Thus, the narrative of sacred struggle flowed, leaving those who followed to ponder, how would the blood of the Lamb usher in the new covenant foretold, woven intricately within the divine narrative of time? And it came to pass at midnight, the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon. A great cry arose in Egypt, for there was not a house where one was not dead. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great fear upon the land. Then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, "Rise up, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also." The weight of the darkness had been lifted from Pharaoh's heart, yet little did he know that the true struggle had just begun. Moses and Aaron gathered the people, and they began to prepare for their exodus. The Israelites took the dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls being bound up in their garments on their shoulders. They were ready to move, their hearts alight with expectation, each step marking not just a departure from bondage, but an embrace of the promise of the Lord. The Lord instructed Moses to consecrate every firstborn among the Israelites, declaring, "They are mine. For on the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified for myself all the firstborn in Israel, both of man and of beast, they are mine. I am the Lord." As dawn broke, the Israelites moved with haste, compelled by the urgency of the moment. The air was thick with a mixture of sorrow for the Egyptians, who had faced the weight of divine judgment, and joy for their own liberation. Yet they departed not empty-handed, they asked the Egyptians for silver and gold jewelry, and the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Thus, they plundered their captors, and they departed from the land of their oppression, the weight of slavery lifted from their backs as they bore the blessings of God's providence. But the heart of Pharaoh, though broken, was not yet surrendered. He changed his mind and pursued the children of Israel with ferocious resolve. With chariots and armed men, he set forth to return them to bondage. Darkness looming once more upon the horizon, the people of Israel, faced with the roaring tide of the pursuing Egyptians, cried out to the Lord and trembled with fear. Fear swept through their ranks, and their faith wavered, for they saw the sea sprawled before them, impossible to cross, and enemies pressing behind. Moses, anchored in divine assurance, spoke with fortitude, "Fear not. Stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." And the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people may go through the sea on dry ground." And so Moses obeyed, raising his staff high. The winds began to howl, the waters of the sea parted, and the ground became dry before them. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, the waters rising like walls on their left and right. As they crossed, the heaven above darkened, and the fury of the storm brewed. The Egyptians followed, but the Lord troubled their chariots, causing them to swerve and stumble. With a mighty hand, the waters returned and swallowed Pharaoh's army whole. A great silence fell upon the land, for God's salvation had triumphed, and Israel stood on the other side, liberated. In that moment, songs of praise broke forth among the people, for the Lord had shown his power. Yet a question lingered among their hearts: how would this journey transform them, and what covenant lay ahead, written not on tablets of stone, but upon hearts awakened to faith? Thus, the sign of the Exodus was not merely a path through the sea, it was a calling into a covenant relationship, setting the stage for what was yet to be revealed. How, then, would the unfolding of this divine drama pave the way for a promise greater than mere deliverance? Then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song unto the Lord, and spoke, saying, "I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea." Their voices rose like a newfound flame, echoing against the shores of freedom as Miriam, the prophetess, took a timbrel in her hand. She led the women in a dance, proclaiming the praises of the Almighty. The Israelites rejoiced, their hearts filled with gratitude, yet the path ahead remained veiled in uncertainty. The Lord had delivered them from the hand of their oppressors, yet what lay in wait beyond the wilderness? Each step was both celebration and contemplation as the people turned their faces to the open expanse of the desert before them. "Where shall we go?" they murmured among themselves, for the desert stretched endlessly, an untested ground that seemed to hold both promise and peril. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "I will lead you by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. I will be with you, fear not, for I am the Lord your God." With each passing day, the drama of their deliverance began to unfold into a larger tapestry of divine intention. Manna from heaven would nourish them, and water would spring from the very rock to quench their thirst. Yet within their hearts brewed a tempest of doubt. Is the Lord among us or not? They oft questioned, as trials stretched their faith like a taut rope before the arrow. Even as they journeyed, the Amalekites, fierce in battle, surged forth to attack. "Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill," Moses instructed Joshua, "with the staff of God in my hand." As the battle waged, every time Moses held his hands high, Israel prevailed, but when he lowered them, Amalek gained the upper hand. Exhausted, his arms grew heavy, and Aaron and Hur came alongside him, raising his hands until sunset, enabling Joshua to lead the Israelites to victory. The Lord spoke, "Write this as a memorial in a book and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." The Israelites marveled at God's unwavering strength and his promise of judgment upon their enemies. As days turned into weeks, the children of Israel encamped at the foot of Mount Sinai, where the presence of God descended like smoke upon the mountain, and the earth trembled at his might. The people stood afar off, filled with fear and awe, as Moses drew near to commune with the Lord. The voice of God thundered, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. He declared his commandments, binding their hearts to him through a covenant that would define a people and prepare them for an inheritance beyond measure. But amidst the splendor of the divine, a lingering doubt would rise: would they keep the covenant? Would their hearts remain steadfast in devotion to the one who had given them life? As the words of the Lord echoed in the valley, the foundation for a new beginning was set, yet the path towards holiness proved incessantly steep. Thus, the Exodus was but the beginning of a greater journey, a covenant relationship anchored in assurance yet layered in the challenge of faith. The people's hearts would test and weave a deeper understanding of God's nature and purpose. What deeper promise, then, would emerge from this sacred struggle, as they braced themselves for the trials that lay ahead? God's plan unfolded in the midst of uncertainty, beckoning them toward a truth yet to be fully revealed. Could it be that in their wandering, they would discover the grace that leads to true faith? And so, the stage was set, awaiting the tapestry of God's mighty works to be woven through obedience, trials, and the lasting promise of deliverance. And it came to pass, as Moses ascended the mountain, the glory of the Lord enveloped him, and he was lost in communion with the Most High. The voice of God continued to resonate in his ears, delivering instructions that would guide the people in their walk. "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel," the Lord commanded, imparting to Moses a vision of their sacred purpose. Yet even in the beauty of this divine encounter, the hearts of the people grew restless. They turned to Aaron, fearful of the unknown, saying, "Make us gods who shall go before us, for as for this Moses, we do not know what has become of him." Their lamentation echoed through the encampment, and in their anxiety, they sought tangible gods, gold and silver that shimmered with earthly promise. Aaron, caught between the demands of the people and the command of the Lord, yielded to their pleas. He fashioned a golden calf and declared, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." Deep in the mountain, Moses felt the tremors of anger rise within him as the Lord informed him, "Go, get down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves." The Lord's voice was heavy with grief, for he saw their rebellion taking root. Moses descended the mountain, the stone tablets of the covenant held tightly in his hands, only to witness the people dancing around the idol, lost in revelry. In disbelief, he shattered the tablets at the foot of the mountain, a physical manifestation of their broken covenant. "What is this you have done?" he cried to Aaron, whose heart trembled under the weight of his brother's rebuke. "They gave me their gold, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf came out," Aaron stammered, attempting to absolve himself of responsibility. But Moses saw the depth of their sin, and he stood at the entrance of the camp, raising his voice, "Whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me." The sons of Levi rallied to his call, armed with swords, ready to execute justice, for the holiness of God demanded accountability. That day, 3,000 fell, and a bitter sorrow took hold of the camp, for the burden of transgression echoed loudly. Yet amidst judgment, Moses sought reconciliation for his people, pleading with God, "Oh, this people has sinned a great sin, yet now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it, but if not, I pray, blot me out of your book which you have written." The Lord responded, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book." Though judgment fell, grace remained. The Lord instructed Moses to carve new tablets, and on the morning of the next day, he would come and reveal his glory anew, proclaiming his nature, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abounding in goodness and truth, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. Thus, God's covenant would be sealed once more, not merely in law but in love. The journey continued, marked now by the duality of human frailties and divine forgiveness. The people would wander, yet in their wanderings, find transformative grace. Could it be that through judgment and mercy, their hearts would grasp the fullness of God's sovereign purpose? What awaited them in the wilderness as they sought the promised land, and what treasures might be found in the depths of their faith as their covenant journey unfolded before them? And it came to pass, in the dawning light of the morrow, that Moses arose early and ascended the mountain anew, the burden of his people's sin heavy upon him. The Lord had commanded him, "Carve 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke." With reverence and trembling hands, Moses hewed the stones, the chips scattering like fallen stars upon the earth. As he stood once more in the presence of the Almighty, the mountain quaked with the sanctity of the moment, and the presence of God descended upon him in a cloud of glory. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you, the voice of God declared. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. Awe-stricken, Moses shielded his face, for the glory of the Lord was immense, and he longed to behold the fullness of God's countenance. The Lord passed before him, calling out, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering, and abounding in goodness and truth. Moses fell to the ground in worship, a fragile vessel before the majesty that demanded holiness. If I have found grace in your sight, O Lord, let my Lord, I pray, go among us, even though we are a stiff-necked people. His plea struck the heavens, for he understood the weight of their rebellion and the need for divine guidance. The Lord replied, I will make a covenant before all your people, I will do marvels such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among whom you are shall see the work of the Lord. For it is an awesome thing that I will do with you. Moses, emboldened by this promise, returned to the people and recited all the words of the covenant before them. They responded with one voice, all the words which the Lord has said, we will do. Yet in the shadows of their resolve lay a flicker of doubt, the memory of their swift transgression still fresh in their hearts. Then the Lord instructed Moses to gather offerings from the people, a token of their renewed commitment. From everyone who gives it willingly with his heart, you shall take my offering. Thus, the hearts of the people stirred, and they brought forth gold, silver, and fine linen. The spirit of generosity flowed through the camp, a stark contrast to the idolatry that had corrupted them. Days turned into weeks as Moses remained on the mountain, the tablets etched with the very hand of God, and the people below began to wonder, their faith waning. They whispered among themselves, what if the Lord has forsaken us? Yet Moses, seeking solitude in God's presence, was oblivious to the creeping despair that darkened the minds of the Israelites. Finally, the Lord spoke, behold, I am making a new covenant with your people. And as he gave Moses the commandments, each word resonated with authority and love, reflecting his desire for a people set apart, not merely by law but by spirit and truth. As Moses descended with the new tablets, the people stood in anxious anticipation, uncertain of what lay ahead. Would they embrace the goodness of God, or would they falter again in rebellion? The path was set before them, fraught with challenges and promises unfulfilled. Little did they know, the unfolding of God's sovereign plan would lead them to confront their deepest fears and showcase his unwavering faithfulness. The wilderness awaited them, a testimony of testing and transformation. Was it possible that their greatest struggles bore the seeds of future victories in the shadow of God's eternal promise? And it came to pass that as Moses descended the mountain, radiant and trembling, the tablets of stone clutched tightly under his arm, his heart surged with hope and trepidation. The people, restless and weary, waited with bated breath, their eyes fixated upon the figure of their leader, bright with the glory of God. Yet within the crowd, uncertainty had taken root, whispers of distrust grew like weeds among their hearts. As Moses approached the camp, he beheld the tumult of the people, their faces drawn, shadows of doubt clouding their gaze. For in their impatience, they had turned aside once more, crafting a golden idol to whom they might offer their praises. Anguish pierced Moses' heart, for he foresaw the deepening of their transgression against their covenant with the Holy One. In fervent distress, he cast the tablets from his hands, and the stones shattered upon the ground, a dire symbol of the broken covenant. O wretched people, he cried out, his voice echoing like thunder among the hills. What folly has possessed you to forsake the Lord who has delivered you from bondage? Have you forgotten his mercies? The people stood aghast, their eyes wide with horror as they beheld the remnants of the covenant now lying in pieces. The air was thick with guilt and shame, and they trembled in the presence of their leader whom they had led astray. Yet, amidst the wreckage of the tablets and their spirits broken, the Lord spoke again unto Moses from the mountain, Go up to me and make new tablets of stone, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. The promise of restoration glimmered on the horizon. Moses, filled with holy resolve, ascended the mountain once more, climbing with renewed determination. Lord, he implored, if you will forgive this people, then forgive their sin, but if not, I pray, blot me out of your book which you have written." The weight of his leadership bore heavily on him, yet the Lord's response was firm and merciful. "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. But now, go, lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you." In this moment, the veil of divine justice and mercy unfolded before Moses, as he contemplated the weight of both God's covenant love and his fierce holiness. With steadfast faith, Moses returned to the people, carrying the message of retribution imbued with hope. "The Lord has heard my plea for forgiveness, and he shall lead us still." His voice rang forth, igniting a flicker of faith in the hearts of the Israelites, yet the road ahead would be fraught with trials, for the God they had offended would now lead them through the wilderness, where their faith would be tested and their resolve strengthened. Days turned to weeks as they journeyed onward, searching for the land promised to their forefathers. Through trials in the wilderness, they would come to know their God in deeper ways, learning dependence upon his provision and grace. The sacred lessons crafted in the crucible of doubt would forge a people ready to claim God's promises, even amidst their struggles, and so, as the Israelites journeyed through barren lands, the sacred narrative began to unveil a truth that transcended their immediate fears. Within every struggle lay the root of a greater blessing, a divine purpose woven into the fabric of their existence. Little did they know, though the path ahead seemed daunting, the Lord was meticulously crafting not just a nation, but a legacy that would echo through the ages, a people called by his name that would one day lead all the nations to his eternal promise. But what new trials awaited them, and how would they respond to the unfolding of God's sovereign plan? And it came to pass that as Moses journeyed with the people through the desolate wilderness, the sun blazed overhead, relentless in its gaze, and the shadows of doubt loomed ever larger. It was during this time of wandering, when hunger gnawed at their stomachs and thirst parched their lips, that the Israelites began to murmur against Moses and against the Lord. "Have you brought us into this wilderness to die?" they cried, their voices echoing through the arid landscape. "We would have been better off in Egypt, where we had flesh to eat and bread to the full." Their hearts, steeped in discontent, forgot the mighty hand of God that had delivered them from bondage. Yet the Lord, whose compassion is boundless, heard their lamentations and spoke to Moses, saying, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not." Thus, in response to their grumbling, the Lord provided manna, a bread-like substance that appeared each morning. The air sweetened with the scent of sustenance as the Israelites gathered this miraculous food, marveling at the heavenly provision. "What is it?" they asked, for they did not know what it was. Moses answered them, "It is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat." Their taste of divine provision brought forth gratitude in some, but also a desire for more than the simple sustenance offered. As the days turned into weeks, the people's hearts began to yearn once more for the familiar comforts of Egypt. They said, "We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away, there is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes." Moses, distressed by their discontent, went before the Lord with a heavy spirit. "Why have you laid this burden upon me?" he pleaded. "Am I able to bear all this people alone? For they are too heavy for me. If you will deal thus with me, please kill me here and now, if I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my wretchedness." The Lord, in his mercy, calmed Moses' troubled heart and instructed him to gather 70 elders of Israel whom he would instill with the Spirit, that they might share the burden of leadership. "Then you shall say to the people, Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat," the Lord declared, promising them a feast of quail that would abound till it loathed in their mouths, and the winds of heaven blew, and quail came up and covered the camp, much as the Lord had said. Yet amongst the clamoring for food, there was a foreboding whisper of rebellion stirring within the hearts of the people. Some of them feasted with greed, their bellies full but their spirits empty, disregarding the holiness of their provision. That in this tension, Moses stood as a mediator, wrestling not only with the people's discontent but with the weight of a divine calling. His heart ached as he realized that their trials were not solely theirs but a part of a greater plan unfolding, a preparation for a heart that would one day yield to his covenant. And as gold is refined in fire, so too the Lord sought to refine his people, shaping them for a destiny far grander than their earthly desires could envision. For in their trials were lessons crafted with divine intent, teaching them reliance upon the Lord and the sweetness of His presence amidst their journey. Thus, amidst their struggling faith and the provision of His grace, a profound secret remained hidden. What awaited them was not just a land flowing with milk and honey but the birth of a people, transformed and ready to proclaim the glory of the one who led them. Yet, even now, the question lingered: how would they respond to the refining fires of God's sovereign plan? And it came to pass that the people of Israel continued in their restless journey, their hearts divided between the memories of their past bondage and the hope of the promise that lay ahead. As they camped in the wilderness of Paran, the Lord spoke to Moses once again, saying, "Gather the congregation and let them know that I have set before them not only a land, but a covenant, a commitment to dwell among them and to be their God." Moses obeyed, summoning all the people to the entrance of the tabernacle, where the glory of the Lord descended like a cloud. The air was thick with the presence of the Almighty, and the people trembled in awe. "Hear, O Israel," Moses proclaimed, "for the Lord our God is one God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might." Yet amidst this solemn declaration, the murmurings resurfaced, rising like the sands of the desert. "Why do you command us to love a God we cannot see?" they cried. "What have we to show for His faithfulness but this dry land and this daily bread that we gather? We wish to know His ways, to feel His mighty hand upon us." Moses fell upon his face, seeking the Lord's guidance in the midst of their doubt. The Lord, full of grace, said, "Take a trusted man from each tribe of Israel, and send them to spy out the land which I am giving to the children of Israel. They shall see the goodness of the land, the abundance I have prepared, that they might believe and carry forth the promise into their hearts." So Moses selected 12 men, leaders among their tribes, and sent them into the land of Canaan with a charge: "Be of good courage and bring back fruit from the land." For 40 days they journeyed, observing the richness of the soil and the strength of the inhabitants. When the spies returned, laden with produce, they bore clusters of grapes so large that 2 men bore them on a pole between them. Their hearts filled with the bounty of the promise, yet fear began to take root. "We came to the land where you sent us," they reported to Moses and the congregation. "It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the people who dwell there are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. We saw giants there, and we felt like grasshoppers in their sight." Panic spread among the people like wildfire, igniting the murmurs once more. "Let us return to Egypt," they cried, "for it would be better to serve there than perish by the sword here in Canaan." But Caleb, one of the spies, stilled the congregation and spoke, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." Joshua joined him, echoing the faith that resided in their hearts, urging the people to remember the mighty hand of God that had delivered them from slavery. Yet the hearts of the men trembled, they could not listen to the voices of faith. Their murmurs turned to rebellion, and they raised their voices against the Lord, saying, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and little ones will become prey." In the midst of this tumult, the Lord's Spirit grieved. "How long will these people despise me? How long will they not believe in me, in spite of all the signs which I have performed among them?" The presence of the Lord became a thundering echo of divine disappointment upon His people, yet, even as judgment beckoned, a divine plan loomed. The faithful were to be rewarded, while the disbelieving would wander, unyielding to His covenant. "As I live," the Lord declared, "the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, for all who have seen my glory and my signs and yet have not heeded my call shall not enter the land I had promised to them." And so, the saga of rebellion and promise unfolded before the eyes of the chosen. The hearts of the faithful remained steadfast, awaiting what the Lord would do next, for hidden beneath the tension and turmoil lay an unfolding mystery, the promise of a new covenant, one that would arise from the ashes of disbelief and lead His people to a greater revelation of Himself. How then would the Lord fulfill His plan for a people who hesitated before His call? And it came to pass, after many years of wandering through the desert, the children of Israel stood on the threshold of the promised land, a land rich with promise and potential, yet fraught with the shadows of their past. Moses, their steadfast leader, had labored long, guiding them with compassion, rebuke, and hope. But his time was drawing near. The Lord had decreed that he would not enter the land of Canaan, for in his moment of doubt at Meribah he had not upheld the sanctity of God's command. As Moses gathered the elders before him, the sun hung low in the sky, casting deep shadows upon the encampment. "Hear, O Israel," he proclaimed with a voice both tender and strong, "you are a people chosen by Yahweh, the God who has walked with you through trials and triumphs. Remember the covenant made at Sinai. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and with all your might. For this is your strength, this is your purpose." The assembly listened intently, their hearts stirred by memories of Egypt, the plagues, the crossing of the Red Sea, and the daily miracle of manna. And yet, as Moses recounted the gracious acts of the Lord, a somber reality cloaked some hearts in heaviness. How many times had they faltered, forgetting his faithfulness? Then, filled with the Spirit, Moses spoke of the days to come, foretelling of a day when God would raise up a prophet from among them, one who would write his commands not on tablets of stone but upon their hearts. "The Lord your God will establish a covenant deeper than the one you've known," he urged. "In this new promise, he will remember your transgressions no more. Instead, he will draw you close, granting you a renewed spirit." With tears glistening in the eyes of the people, Moses ascended Mount Nebo, where the Lord showed him the land that would flow with milk and honey. He gazed upon the vast horizon that stretched before him, a testament of the Lord's promise fulfilled, though he could not step upon its fertile soil. "This is the land I swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To your descendants, I will give it, and I will be a God to them," declared the Lord, the divine presence enveloping Moses. The legacy of Moses did not wane in silence. His death was filled with grace and honor, for God buried him in the valley, and no one knows his grave to this day. In his final moments, he held a peace within, for he had led them as best he could toward the promise, pointing always to the future, and so, Joshua, son of Nun, filled with the spirit of wisdom, took command. The people prepared themselves to cross the Jordan River, a river that trembled in anticipation of the Israelites' arrival. Once again, God performed a mighty miracle. He parted the waters, and they crossed on dry ground, much like their forefathers had done at the Red Sea. The people shouted with joy, praising the Lord, for his presence was tangible among them. Within the hearts of the people, a transformation began. They remembered the blessings of obedience, recalling the movement of God through their trials. The covenant written upon their hearts came alive, and their faith found its voice not in fear, but in triumphant worship. They built an altar at Gilgal, a physical reminder of God's faithfulness, a memorial to testify for generations to come. As they marched forth, battles would come, and yet their hearts, now resolute, began to understand that each confrontation was not merely a test of strength but an invitation into a deeper relationship with their God. "This land is yours," they would proclaim, battling in faith, knowing the Lord fought for them, their backs no longer laden with the weight of Egypt, but alight with divine purpose. The tribulations of their past began to forge a people devoted to his glory, as they learned the true depth of his covenant. In times of struggle, they would cry out his name and receive strength. In times of joy, they would worship and proclaim his deeds. They became a nation shaped by his love, eager to share the message of hope with the world. The journey of the Israelites transformed into a beacon of faith, a foreshadowing of the Savior Jesus Christ who would come to fulfill the ultimate promise, bringing redemption to all who believe. Thus, the sacred struggle and divine affirmation led to a resolution that reverberated throughout the ages, echoing, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." As you reflect on this journey, remember, God's faithfulness extends beyond the thresholds of our circumstances, uniting us through his everlasting covenant. The call to love him remains, the covenant to proclaim his name ever present, and the journey of faith continues. Now, do not wait even one more second to embrace this spiritual journey. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and discover the strength woven through tales of faith. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Leave a like now to help share God's powerful stories through the algorithm. Your voice matters. Comment your reflections on how this biblical tale has impacted your faith. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let's illuminate the path to divine understanding and walk boldly in the light of His promise.